Namaskar, good morning. Welcome to second day of 3 days online training program on media and disaster management jointly organized by the National Institute of Disaster Management, Ministry of Home Affairs and National Academy of Broadcasting and Multimedia, the Apex in-house training institution of Prasar Bharati. The role of media in disaster management has improved significantly in recent years by using new technology and introducing the knowledge of technical experts who are able to better describe the causes and consequences of disaster. The fact that technology has made possible things such as remote television transmission or satellite communication have led to a proliferation of information and report of humanitarian events whenever and wherever they occur. Not only the technology has allowed the media to cover a wider number of disasters, but also to reach greater amount and the way in which the media portrays image and describe real scenario is crucial to determine the level of response. Communication is an important part of disaster prevention and management. Many channels are used before and during a disaster, example visible or audible signals, leaflets, announcement by speaker cars, and public events. Important channels are the mass media, newspapers, televisions, radio, and increasingly important, the internet. Mass media have certain characteristics that make them advantageous for disaster communication as they provide easy access to large publics, and some of them constitute a robust communication system which remains working even in case of partial breakdown of the infrastructure. To enlighten us more in this topic, we have distinguished speakers with us: Shri Rajiv Kumar Shukla, Senior Media Person, Dr. Sandeep Barua, Scientist F, Vigyan Prasar, and Shri Anil Katet, Young Professional from NIDM. During the technical session, there will be presentations, and once all the presentations are over, we will have question answer session at the end of the technical session. Your active participation is very important to us. Kindly use Q&A window only to raise questions. One more important announcement that participants having 80% and above attendance in Cisco WebEx event in all the 3 days of training program shall be eligible for program certificates. No certificate of participation for attending training program via YouTube platform. The same link will be used for all the 3 days of the training program. Now, for our first presentation, we have with us Mr. Anil Kathat, Young Professional, Center for Hill Area Development, GMR Division, National Institute of Disaster Management. He is postgraduate in geology with over 8.5 years of experience in the field of landslide hazard management and disaster management. Prior to joining NIDM, he has worked with some of prestigious organizations such as UNDP, NIUA, and CRRI. He penned 20 research papers on various aspects of landslide hazard mitigation and management, contribution in drafting the engineering guideline on landslide mitigation measures for Indian roads. Now, I would like to call upon Mr. Anil Kathar. Over to you, sir.
To all of you. Today I will be discussing about how social media can help better management of India is one of the highly disaster-prone countries in the world. Disasters of every name and fame can be found throughout the history of the country, like Malpa and 1998, Odisha cyclone 1999, Gujarat earthquake 2001, Indian Ocean tsunami 2004, Kedarnath tragedy 2013, and so on. Every year, at least one catastrophic event occurred in some or other part of the nation. In recent years, our many states were facing havoc from recurring floods in monsoon season. These disaster events incur enormous loss of economy, life, devastation to our ecosystem. To an estimation, around 2% of India's GDP is lost to adverse impact of disasters. And being a developing One disaster also hampered the socio-economic progress growth of our nation. With changing climatic conditions, the intensity and frequency of events will raise, especially those associated with weather. Further, the rapid urbanization will put more number of people at the window of disaster risk. So we need a tool that can help us to reach the large number of people to sensitize or raise public awareness about the risk of disasters in their particular area. We need a tool or platform like social media for quick dissemination of ground realities down and to the cut down response time. In today's techno-savvy world, social media has redefined communication. Text messaging, internet, social networking sites have made it possible to communicate with a large number of people anywhere on earth. It is an efficient and easy way to keep in touch and impart information, particularly in a time of crisis. The social media tool aids in various aspects of emergency awareness and preparedness to connect, discuss, share knowledge in specific fields. It also allows people who are recovering from disaster to rapidly connect with those needed resources. So I already mentioned India is one of the highly disaster vulnerable countries, and due to being one of the highly vulnerable countries in the world, India has always been on its toe to confront the challenges posed by a number of disasters. A number of nation interventions were carried out for disaster management. Our Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi, during his address at 7th Asian Ministerial Conference on Disaster Risk in 2016, outlined 10-point agenda on disaster risk management. In that agenda, point 7 exhorted to utilize the opportunity provided by social media and mobile of disaster management. If we talk about the characteristic of social media, it encompasses of content format, including text, video, photographs, audio, PDF, PowerPoint. Many social media make use of this option by allowing more than one content alternative. It allows interaction to cross one or more platform through social sharing, email, and feeds. It involves participatory approach where different participants can create or comment on social media networks. Information can be quickly disseminated. Communication can be between one to one, one to many, or many to many. Communication can be done in a real time through social media. It can take place via computer, tablets, smartphones. Real-time online events can be created that can be used later for offline interaction. So these are some of the characteristics of the social media. Now, talking about the advantages of social media. Social media had a number of advantages when we talk about in the field of disaster management. It helps in quick dissemination of information, ground realities of wider population. The social media tool aid in locating the affected people in any disaster and also enable two-way interaction between victims and rescuing team. Social media make in raising relief material and money relevant or concerned disaster management authorities can get information regarding any disaster situation that have occurred in their respective geographic region and therefore can aid in taking appropriate measures to reduce the adverse impact of event. Social media can also be used for data collection, updating alerts, and notification. The tool of social media can be helpful in all phases of disaster management. It can aid in preparing the communities for any unpleasant event by providing better understanding of the risk associated with the disasters, as well as precautionary safety measures to combat those risks. It can also aid in quick response rescue measures, helping the disaster managers to cut down the response time. During, for example, during Kashmir flood in 2014, an automated SOS was introduced after the army and Twitter collaborated for rescue operation. Similarly, the standard people during Uttarakhand tragedy of 2013 use social media platform to locate safe spot. Safety check features of various social media platforms were used by people to notify their friends, family that they are safe, as well as to connect and extend support to each other. So these are some of the advantages the social media provided in managing the disasters. Social media is also a two-edged sword. It does have certain merits, but its misuse can't be neglected. The tendency of human nature to sensationalize news, basic information may get disappropriately misconstructed, as a result of which rumors is created, misleading people with regard to ongoing activities. In the process, there is loss of confidential information, and victims may fail to be notified about revised guidelines or revised safety measures. Eventually, the lack of constant flow of communication can result in chaos and confusion. For example, recent, uh, recently news and update about COVID-19 flooded the various social media platforms, which lacks any mechanism to check the credibility of those newses. Miscommunication have been trending on social media regarding the COVID-19 precaution guidelines. Messages were being forwarded in social media, like stay indoor between 10 to 5 a.m. as disinfecting procedure was underway. Similarly, there are some news on that the government of India is declaring financial emergency in India under the Article 360, reduction in the salary and pension of the government employees, and as well as Disaster Management Act prohibit any citizen apart from the government to post any update or share any forward related coronavirus, making it punishable offense were also in circulation. Misinformation on chicken as a carrier of coronavirus was widely disseminated across India through social media. Consequently, the poultry industry suffered an estimated loss of almost billion rupees per day, according to the All India Poultry Breeders Association. So every individual should realize that managing disaster is not restricted to any particular section, but we have all to contribute in it. Circulation of such fake news will hamper the management of disaster. So, what are the legal recourse to combat such incidences, to stop such fake news to be in circulation? The Chapter 10 of Disaster Management Act 2005 offenses and penalties have certain provision to punish the culprit. There are 10 sections in the chapter you can see highlighting the necessary action to be taken against different types of offense. This the section number 54, punishment for false warning. Whoever makes us or circulate a false alarm or warning as to disaster or its severity or magnitude leading to panic shall on conviction be punishable with imprisonment which may extend to 1 year or with fine. Similarly, there is section 69A, Information Technology Act 2000, which empowers to issues directions for public access of any information through any means. The government can issue directions to block or remove objectionable content on social media and on any other website. A concerned person or authority failing to comply with the directions issued might be punished with imprisonment for a term of up to 7 years and shall also be liable to fine. A person can also be booked under IPC section 505 1B if his any statement if his any statement conducive to public trouble with intent to cause fear or alarm to the public or induce to commit an offense against the uh, against the state or against the public calmness. This action has been recently used in states like Kerala, Hyderabad, Tamil, Maharashtra on false claims related to COVID-19. Social media can play a very important role in pre-disaster, during disaster, and post-disaster phase. It can enhance preparedness by raising public awareness about risk of disaster. It can also provide information instruction with real-time alerts and warning. It can facilitate in monitoring early warning of disaster, locating people during disaster who needs any kind of help, identify volunteers for responding during the disaster. Social media tool can also help in the operations of rescue, relief, and rehabilitation. Social media has in today's era, social media has become a valuable means of communication in many places affected by a natural disaster, which allow people to keep in touch with family and friends and access important information. Social media, sorry, sorry, social media cannot and should not succeed current approach to disaster communication or replace existing infrastructure, but it managed strategically. They can be used to boost the current system. Thank you. Over to you, Ajit.
I think, sir, you should take some glass of water.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, thank you, sir, for a presentation. As you told that social media as a boon to internet user has emerged as the first choice of communication among the youth world over. It is being used phenomenically by the youth these days for connecting with each other in terms of data sharing, collaborating, exchanging views, and so on. In fact, social media has time and again proved its utility during emergency situations. In short, this mode of communication is here to stay and grow with time and with paradigm shift of use of media from one-way communication to two-way message dissemination. It equally becomes important that disaster managers include social media in their scheme of things as well. Now, moving ahead with our second presenter, we have Dr. Sandeep Barua, Scientist F. Vigyan Prasad. He is involved in the promotion of amateur radio for the last 33 years. He received his radio communication license in 1999 when he was a student of Assam Agricultural University. He came out with the guidebook An Amateur Radio in 1992, which was widely used during those early days of amateur radio in India by the novice. Sri Sandeep is able to draw nationwide attention from the younger as well old generation of ham, as evident from the fact that he is being invited as guest speaker to many of the renowned technical and educational institutes of our country, as well as other governmental stakeholder agencies. He continuously carrying out outreaching programs in school, engineering college, and other governmental stakeholder agency in different part of the country, along with his other responsibility as the project in charge of EduSat. He was involved in emergency radio communication during many of the past large-scale disasters in India, where amateur radio was extensively used for disaster communication and from the disaster-affected areas like Gujarat, Bhuj earthquake, Andaman and Nicobar Island tsunami, Odisha super cyclone, Uttarakhand disaster, and Nepal earthquake. With this word, I would like to pass on the stage to Dr. Sandeep Barua. Over to you, sir.
Good morning to all. So thank you very much for being present in this session. Initially, I would like to brief you about what ham radio is all about. Ham radio, as we call, is actually governmentally known as amateur radio. Amateur means non-professional. So it is a two-way communication system that is being maintained by people all over the world, and it is a personal communication system. Like we have our mobile phones, which is our personal device. Similarly, we hams also carry these type of two-way radios for two-way communication. So whenever there is a large-scale emergency situation when the conventional modes of communication system fails, during that time, it usually happens. Actually, what happens? Suppose today there is a very large-scale earthquake in Delhi, and most of the cell phone network would go down. One of the reasons that the cell phone network or the landline network that goes down during any large scale catastrophic disaster, it is because one of the reasons is the terrestrial installations may be break down. They may be break down, and sometime there may be clogging in the communication channels, the conventional modes of communication channels like the mobile phone. Because what happens during an emergency situation, lots of people start typing text messages on their smartphone to know about the well-being of their relatives, friends, family members, and they may be anywhere at different places. If it is a very large scale one, like during the tsunami, people from mainland to Andaman couldn't communicate because the communication to landline through telephone system totally broke down. And during that time, what happens? Our radio communication system always we maintain with our own personal effort. So you see here you can see I have my own personal radio systems very close by to me. And in case if my mobile phone doesn't work, if it goes down, then I have my own friends all over scattered all over Delhi, so that I can instantly communicate to them, passing any emergency message. And most of the people who are not actually means enlightened about this ham radio activity, they think that it is some kind of a governmental communication system. It is not a governmental communication system. It is totally a personal communication system, and it is maintained by us because of our passion for communication, radio communication, two-way radio communication. So there may be a question like if I become a ham, will the government provide me a radio communication set like this or like this? Then it is no, because it is your personal interest that you are becoming a ham. I shall come to that how to become a ham in my presentation in the slide. So I'll tell you about how to become a ham. So it was long back in 1986. Actually, I wanted to build a small toy transmitter, a radio transmitter. For example, we listen to FM radio stations using radios like this, FM radio stations or community broadcast stations. I know there may be many community people who are attending this seminar. These frequencies, these are one way, because we can only listen to the programs, entertainment or whatever. But of course, there may be some important information that can come through these radios. But uh, these radios, these radios, when you use, you get connected two-way. So it is not just one-way broadcast, it is. And to become eligible to get a license, one has to appear for an exam, because it is an activity, radio communication do it yourself activity. You see, it started like when I was a kid, school kid, just like this, a small, suppose, toy transmitter. This is a toy transmitter. So this can be assembled by a small kid. So it is a way of learning the radio communication technologies. So initially we make small transmitters, and we have a guidebook for that, in fact. So that guidebook is this guidebook, and this is the circuit. So this can be assembled on a PCB, printed circuit board, or it can be assembled uh, on a Vero board like this. So you see, ham radio is inherently a do-it-yourself activity. So when it is a do-it-yourself activity, when we communicate with each other, that is also our main intention is to learn the radio communication techniques, and that is a skill that we develop using the radios, because radios have different modes of communication. Many people have a misconception that only through smartphones we are capable of text messaging, but that is not true. We are capable of text messaging to our radios as well, using radios. For example, during an emergency situation, if the smartphone network clogs down or breaks down, if we are capable of communicating to our friends using our own devices. And there are lots of advantages of using these radios. Actually, you can see this radio, and this radio, suppose there is an earthquake in Delhi, and what happens? The search and rescue team, they come into action to rescue the people. So if I am an amateur radio operator, a ham radio operator, it's a colloquial term. Actually, the word ham, it's not an abbreviation. It is a colloquial term that is used to describe a person who is a government licensed amateur radio operator. So how to get the license, that I will come next during my presentation. So you see this small radio and this antenna, I will not be capable of communicating very too far away. It is called line of sight, like optical, means if I can see someone standing at a 20-story building, that is line of sight. Similarly, this antenna, if it can see another radio which is in its line of sight, both can communicate. So if I have to communicate to someone far away, it is not possible using this type of radio. So these type of radios are usually used for local activities, networking of local in a localized area, for example, NCT area. And for that, sometimes we hams have repeater station for that, to communicate to people. Now I'm just going to show you a practical demonstration about how we use our radios. And you can see, suppose there is an emergency situation. You can see there is a LED light here, and I can make it blink also. So for example, I can make it blink also, and I can make it sound like a siren also. For example, suppose I am lost in a jungle or in some disaster affected area, someone was searching for me from the air, so I can give the indication and from below using this radio, and the search and rescue team can easily find me. Even if I am suppose injured, I can just press this button and someone can find me, or I can press an emergency button. You see, this is an emergency button. So this, if I press, if I'm injured in an earthquake, sometimes inside the debris, people get stuck up during an earthquake. So if I am an amateur radio operator, if I have a radio like this, I can just press this button, and the search and rescue team can find me where I am located in the midst of the debris. So there are lots of multifaceted application of ham radio actually, and only through practical experience we come to know about it. Now I am going to show you, say in Delhi at this particular moment, there is a very large scale earthquake, God forbid, all communication went down. Then I have my own radio, so I don't have to depend on any governmental or commercial service providers. So that way, our communication system is considered as not conventional, because conventional systems like smartphone or landline or internet, all these things are already maintained by professional people. So we don't need to know anything about how those systems are being run by the professional people, the engineers. They are the engineers and the technicians, technocrats who are maintaining all these sophisticated terrestrial network, like smartphone 4G network, or your say landline telephones, broadband internet. All these are maintained professionally. So we don't need to learn anything about how to maintain that network. But we hams, the radio amateurs, have to learn these things on our own. That is why Ministry of Communications in India, that is the Telecommunication Authority in India, and it is under the International Telecommunication Union (ITU). So ITU recognized amateur radio, that is ham radio, as a socially constructive hobby. It is a hobby actually. It is not something used for governmental communication. But of course, if you are working in National Institute of Disaster Management, an official of NIDM, for example, Dr. Surya Prakash sir, he also holds a license for communication. So your institute can establish an amateur radio station in your an institutional license would be allotted by the Ministry of Communications on the basis of an individual license. And because I am an individual license holder, I can keep my own radios like this. So these are my personal radios for communication. These are not provided by the government. So like I have my own smartphone, I have my own radios. Now, just let me check if I am capable of communicating to someone. Suppose my smartphone has gone down. So this is a VHF base station. Just bring the camera near to it. Just hold. So you can see this is a VHF base station. This is called a very high frequency and ultra high frequency base station. So this equipment has a power of about 50 watts of power, and I have an antenna on top of my building on the roof about 50 feet from the ground. So that has a line of sight to a repeater station maintained by our Bigyan Prasar for the radio emitters, the hams in Delhi and the NCT area hams. So all the messages that I will be transmitting, voice communication, would be transmitted by this radio, and that would go to that repeater relay station, and that would be relayed all throughout Delhi, and other people would be able to hear me. So let me try giving a call. This is Victor Uniform 2, Mike Uniform Echo, giving a call for a demo through Victor Uniform 2 Delta Lima Romeo. I'm giving this demonstration for National Institute of Disaster Management, an online webinar that is going on. So I would appreciate a reply from anyone who is on the frequency, please. This is Victor Uniform 2, Mike Uniform Echo standing by.
Good morning. This is VU3DXI, Victor Uniform 3, Bravo Accelerator. Kaiser, we do hear you very clearly over the air, and your station is coming very clear on this particular frequency. So please go ahead. There is prompt response, and I'm sure the people who are attending this particular presentation would know the power of ham communication and radio communication when all systems are down. Over to you, VU2 MUE. This is VU3DXI. Bye.
After this test is over, we can right now the result is the second seems to be slightly better. The mic seems to be slightly better to me, but you can get reports from others also. Right now, we are slightly busy with MUE. Over to you, MUE, Sandeepji. This is 2 nurses for you.
Yeah, Roger. Victor Uniform 3, Bravo Extra India, and Victor Uniform 2, November Whiskey. Good morning to you, Kaiserda, and good morning to you, Kuldeepji. Very nice to hear you replying to my call. I'm just giving a demonstration to the participants of the National Institute of Disaster Management webinar on disaster management going on. And both of your signal is very, very loud and clear. Very, very loud and clear through the repeater. 5 and 9. Readability is 5 and signal strength is 9. 5 and 9 is the report, Kuldeepji and Kaiserda. Both of you are coming very nice. So I have just actually told the participants about our communication system. If the mobile communication system or smartphone or the internet goes down, we can still be able to communicate with each other. So this shows that we are capable of communicating. And with that, I would like to say 73 to you, Kuldeep, and to you, Kaiserda, because I have to concentrate on my presentation because I'm speaking on front of my camera to the people. So I'm turning my camera right now to the speaker of my radio. So that is the information. So I would like to say 73 and thanks a lot for coming back to my call, because if I keep on talking to you, then the participants would not be able to listen to me. So I appreciate your coming back to the call and replying to me. 73, have a good day. Let me push it back to Kuldeep ji. Victor uniform to November whiskey. Please take it. This is Victor uniform to Mike uniform echo.
Alpha Kilo.
Yeah, Alpha Kilo standby.
Yourself, Sandeep. Only let me know whether you want the channel free right away or you want the channel, we can occupy the channel for a while. I'm trying to help Kaiser a bit, and that is it. I think Alpha Kilo is also there. And a very good afternoon to you, Pradeep ji. And I had just a short QSO with Sandeep. He's a bit busy, but I think he'll respond to you for a short while. He already, his lecture is going on, and probably he's occupied. But let us see if he responds. It's okay. Let us not disturb him. Sandeep, if you want to be, you can call. Respond to AK. Otherwise, I'll understand that you are busy.
Thank you very much, Kuldeep ji. View to Alpha Kilo, good morning. Thanks for returning back to my call, Deep ji. I'll have to sign off now because my camera is I'm focusing to the radio, so I'll be back again for the presentation. So you can continue, Kuldeep ji, Kaiserda, and Deep ji. I'll just keep the volume low of my radio. I will be again in front of the camera for the presentation. Thanks a lot. This VHF communication is a success. And I'm able to show to the participants that our ham radio communication system is capable of communicating all throughout Delhi. 73, have a good day. VU2 AK to continue with VU2NW and VU3BXI. This is Victor Uniform 2, Mike Uniform Echo now signing off. 73 and have a good day. Over to you, Deepji. To AK to go, this is MEV signing off. 73, have a good day.
Okay, Mike Uniform Echo November.
So you can see I just now communicated to 3 stations, 3 hams in Delhi. That is how we are hooked up through either directly or through a relay station. So if the station is nearby, we can communicate point to point without any relay. And that is how we communicate using our own radios. My audible is still Thapaji?
Yes, sir. You are all, sir.
Okay. Everything is going on fine, the video?
Yes, sir. Everything. Sir.
Okay, thank you. So you see, that is what our self-reliance. So the main intention of someone becoming a radio amateur or ham is to become self-reliant in communication. So suppose you are a disaster manager, and you may be from a different department. You may be a doctor, or you may be a police official, or you may be from any profession, maybe a college professor or an engineer. So anyone, maybe an army official. So what happens during an emergency situation, as the other communication system breaks down, even army has their own wireless, and other paramilitary forces, they also have their own two-way wireless communication system. And then police also have their two-way communication system. Similarly, our fire department or electricity department, they also have these wireless two-way communication system up and running. But why ham radio? It is because ham radio enables uh, people from different background and different professions to come in a single platform to make their own social networking. In fact, our ham radio is considered as the world's oldest electronic social networking. When internet was not there, when smartphones were not there, when even landline telephones were not there, our radios were still there. Since 1901, when Guglielmo Marconi, father of radio, when he invented the long distance two-way communication system, the long distance communication system, so following him, actually many people all over the world came up with their own homemade radios. Like I showed you, this is a small kid, small toy. It's just plaything of a small kid. I can just demonstrate you how it works. Means like we start like that only, because when I was a kid, when I was a school kid, I wanted to hear my own voice on a radio. So my father used to ask me, what is the use of listening to your own voice on the radio? Just like a commercial FM station. Uh, Say for example, now we don't have radios. Many of the people now don't use these radios anymore, but we hams still have these type of radios with us, because we are passionate about these radios. That's why we keep these radios, not only the TV. You see, so from this, hello, 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 hello. So I'm speaking from this toy transmitter. It's very close by actually, so that's why the feedback is happening. Hello, hello, test 1 2 3 4 5. 1 2 3 4 5. 1 2 3 4 5. Test 1 2 3 4 5. Now you see, this is one way, just like the FM broadcast stations. Now, when we get a license, we are not one way. We become two way and able to communicate with each other. So that is how we start our communication experiments, building small kits. So this will actually empower our whole generation of the kids, school children. If they establish their radio and electronics club, they not only learn the electronics and radio things, they also learn to communicate with each other, and it's a good way of social networking all throughout the world, not only India, all over the world. And in fact, we are the only people, private people, individual people who are capable of communicating to long distances. For example, this communication set, this device, this can be, you see here, I'm using a key. This is called a Morse key, and for that amateur radio licensing exam conducted by the Ministry of Communications, we need to appear for two grades of license. We can opt for two different grades of licenses. One is a general grade, and another is a restricted grade license. I'll come to know in my PowerPoint about how to go about it. So for the general grade license, we need to have another proficiency, that is called Morse code. Many people think that Morse code is a very old technology. It is not an old technology. It is still, if you buy or get a radio set communication equipment like this is called a HF transceiver, high frequency transceiver. The signal from this radio actually uh, throw an antenna on top of my house. That signal can go anywhere in the world. It is not through some satellite. It is through an invisible layer of charged particles of electrons and ions, which is being charged by the radiation from the sun actually. It is located, it is totally invisible, and that is located at a height of about 90 kilometer to approximately 600 kilometer altitude. And whenever I use this type of frequency, this is 14 megahertz. This is 14 megahertz, and this is called high frequency. And you can see this is 145 megahertz. So this is called very high frequency, and you can see here 434.5 megahertz. This is called ultra high frequency. So we need to know to pass the exam regarding these different frequencies, because if we don't know what are the frequencies allotted to us by the government, the Ministry of Communications, we shall be violating the radio rules, because there are a whole lot of frequencies being by different people, the police, military, or the pilots, or the ships, marine operators. So they use different frequencies. So we need to know our own frequencies. For that, which we need to appear for the exam. And as I showed you, this is called a Morse code. So suppose I need to send the letter A. The letter A, it would be sounded like this. So if you hear, this is a short tone is a dot and a long tone is a dash. Dida, we call it dida. So if I transmit dida, you can hear a short tone and a long tone. This is A. Suppose I want to send a B, that is called da di di dit. This is B. This is A. Suppose C, da di da dit. This is C. Suppose D, da di dit. Even question mark. Question mark is di di da da di dit. So this is called actually the start of the digital communication. Before text messaging is a digital communication system, but this is a manual mode of digital communication system. Well, where a dot can be considered as a 0 and a dash, long tone. Dash can be considered as a 1, dida. So dida may be considered as 0 and 1. So this is the start of the digital communication system. And now I'm going to show you a radio like this. There are different type of radios. You see, this radio has a display, color display, and it is capable of receiving text message. And that text message, I'm just going to transmit from my computer, actually another radio. This radio is connected to the USB port of my computer, and I'm running a software through which, suppose through smartphone, we are not capable of transmitting text message, SMS. Through our communication system, we are still capable of transmitting the text message. It is not through any cell phone network. It is one radio to the radio, two radios sending text message. I'm just going to demonstrate. Suppose you can see so you can see whatever I typed on my computer, it has appeared on the display. So that's how we are capable of communicating from computer to a radio, and from this radio also I can transmit a text message. So we are capable of doing a whole lot of different things, and I will show you a device that is a device called a weather station. And sometime monitoring of weather is very important. So through radio, we are capable of monitoring weather of different places. For example, this is a wireless device, and it can be connected to a radio, and it can in fact transmit the real-time weather information of a specific place, and that information would be recorded on a radio like this remotely without any internet or any cell phone network connectivity. So I'll just show you how it works. Now it is getting connected. Yeah, you can see it is the temperature actually 26 degrees centigrade. The room temperature it is showing because it is inside my room. Then humidity it is 71% and barometric pressure is 972 millibar. And this is an amateur radio system actually. This is a weather amateur radio weather station. Amateur radio automatic weather station. And you can find the weather information if you, that is called the internet of the things that is being used by hams. So if you go to this particular url http://aprs.fi /call is equal to vu2mu-13, then you can find the information even on the internet also, and the same information can be received on a radio also. So lots of things we hams experiment using radio waves. So I have showed you three technologies. One is voice communication, then that Morse code that we need to learn for the general grade license, and then we need to learn that is means other digital text messaging. So these things we can do using ham radio without smartphone or internet devices. Now let me go to my presentation. Okay, so amateur radio, ham, it is colloquially called ham radio, is for learning the radio communication skills, and it is also useful for public service activities, emergency situation, and it is very useful for communication during emergencies, as I already told you. And you can always get back to me for details about how to get the licenses and everything. My email ID is here, sandeep@bigyanprasar.gov.in. So you can get back to me, and my mobile phone also is here, 9811686572. So you can get back to me at any time, and you can just take a screenshot of this slide. Here are the two websites at the bottom, http://vu2me.bravesites.com, then http://www.qsl.net/vu2msy. So you can find the whole lot of information about how to become a ham by going to these websites. Now ham radio, yeah, so what is ham radio? Ham radio or amateur radio is a two-way worldwide communication system maintained by private individuals. These individuals have a passion for radio communication, for which they establish their own two-way radio communication system entirely with personal effort. As per the existing rules of the Telecommunication Authority, they need to take a radio communication license known as amateur station operator's license, for which they need to appear for a licensing exam. Then it gives us a self-reliance, capacity building. So ham radio is the only scientific activity which requires a license from the Telecommunication Authority of a country. It is a do-it-yourself activity. It is legitimized by ITU, International Telecommunication Union, Geneva, as a socially constructive, important technical activity. Without promoting it, we cannot expect to have engineers with an entrepreneurial bent of mind. And we have to make in India our own equipments. Like any other science, it is also a science and the backbone of communication. We need to have the knowledge of radio and electronics theory, for which a training is necessary. But of course, I am self-trained long back in 1986. So, but if somebody guides you, it is very easy to appear for the exam. The exam is a theory exam, radio theory, and maybe a practical of the Morse code if you want to go for the general grade license. After that, you are issued with a license and you can set up your own two-way communication system. Now, what the government rules define ham radio is. Ham radio, that is amateur service, means a service of self-training. That is, I am training myself in radio communication. Intercommunication. Intercommunication means communicating with my friends. And technical investigations, these technical investigations I am doing, carried by amateurs, that is by persons duly authorized under these rules, interested in radio techniques solely with a personal aim. I have no monetary aim. It is my personal interest, personal aim, that I am doing these things without any pecuniary interest. That is the definition of ham, amateur radio operator, given in the governmental radio regulations, Indian Wireless Telegraph Amateur Service Rules 2009. Then this is when I communicated to Andaman. This news came up because of my ability to communicate with long distance radio set. I communicated from my house to Andaman, and I was able to pass on messages for third party. It is people who are not hands. So that is where it is very useful, like Bhuj earthquake, then Uttarakhand flood. So there are multifaceted applications of ham. Already I told you time is now about to be 12, so I need to be fast. Already I told you these are the conventional modes, so these may break down during an emergency situation, but our system, they have already have their own two-way communication system. These people already have, but apart from that, we also can get involved in this radio communication license by appearing for this exam. And you can get information about this whole exam at this website address, my website address, http://www.qsl.net/vu2msy/ascoc_exam. So this slide I shall share with Raju Thapaji, and you can get it from him, so that you can prepare for the licensing exam, and you will get the study material also in this particular website address. Qualification is not necessary. No qualification is necessary. Only one has to be a citizen of India who is above 12 years of age. You have to become 12 year in age, and then you can apply for the license. Or if you have an individual license, then you can establish a radio station in your school, college, society, or institution, or you can establish a club also, club radio station. And then nowadays the Telecommunication Authority has make it easier. You have to apply online only. The online address is this, http://saralsansar.gov.in, in which you have to register and send your application form along with all the details they ask for. And online by registering, so you have to generate your username and a password, and you have to pay an examination fees of 100 rupees, only 100 rupees exam fees. Then these are the stations where you have to apply, and you have to give the license fees through bharatkoos.gov.in. This is the online payment portal, bharatkoos.gov.in. Under these following heads: amateur exam, then exam fees, and you have to select this function head for your application for your license. This is after you pass the exam. So this is in brief about how to get the license, and in details, of course, it take a lot of time to describe. I think I should conclude now. It is already 12 because my time was scheduled from 11:30 to 12. Uh, so, so over to you, Thapaji. I'm stopping my
Yeah,
screen.
oh, you can show that video also, sir, if you wish. You have still 8 minutes.
8 minutes. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So you have to pay the exam fees through bharatcoach.gov.in under this head, amateur exam. Then you have to give the payment type exam fees. Then function head is this, and you can see there are 4 regional monitoring headquarters of the Ministry of Communications, and under these 4 regional monitoring headquarters, there are these are the monitoring stations where the exam is conducted. So accordingly, you have to select these particular account heading for different regions. So these are the different regions, and exam fees. If you this is different. Okay, and after getting your result sheet, you have to apply for the license, and that license is for 20-year or for lifetime. For 20-year, you have to pay a license fee of 1,000 rupees, and for lifetime, you have to pay one-time license fee of 2,000. You see, only you pay a rupees of 2,000, and you are allotted with a whole lot of frequencies to communicate. And during emergency situation, when different people have to coordinate their activities, an NGO or a governmental official or a police official, if they have the ham radio communication license, they can communicate in a single frequency, like I have communicated to all the different people who are on the radio. So they may be, one may be a police official, one may be an army official, one may be a doctor, but we are all networked through our single common frequency. We have a whole lot of frequencies, of course. Then can I take an exam at any center? Once we apply for a center, the center, which are, these are the centers, these Ahmedabad, Ajmer, Bengaluru, Bhopal, Bhubaneswar, Chennai, Dehradun, Dibrugarh, Goa, Gorakhpur, Hyderabad, Jalandhar, Jammu, Kolkata, Lucknow, Mangalore, Mumbai, Nagpur, New Delhi, Patna, Raipur, Ranchi, Shillong, Siliguri, Thiruvananthapuram, Vijayawada, and Visakhapatnam. 27 wireless monitoring station of Ministry of Communications where you have to apply online through saralsansar.gov.in portal. Then you can apply for both the grade of license, general grade or restricted grade. If you have to apply for a general grade, there are actually certain licensing privileges being allotted to the applicant. For example, a general grade license holder, he can use a radio device like this with more power, 400 watts of power he is allowed. But if you hold a restricted grade license, then you would be allowed to use only 50 watt of power using this type of device. Similarly, for this type of device also, there are some power restrictions. That is why, because this is an activity regulated by the Telecommunication Authority, and we have to abide by the rules and regulations. And that is why you need to go through all those details about the rules and regulations and the syllabus, the radio and electronic syllabus you have to pass. And it's a very simple exam, basic electronics and radio regulations. For restricted grade, it is only 1 hour exam. It is very easy actually. It is a multiple choice question exam. There are 25 marks, total 50 marks in each section in electronics and radio regulations, and you have to get 40% in each, but in aggregate you have to get 50%. Then be declared pass in the exam. Only 1 hour exam. For general grade, apart from theory, 50 questions, you have to appear for this Morse code exam also. And if you hold a BTech or BE degree in electronics or telecommunication, you are a BSc or MSc with electronics or telecommunications, or you are a diploma holder in engineering with electronics or telecommunication, then you can apply for exemption. Means you will not have to appear for the radio and electronics theory portion of the exam. So only the rules and regulations, because you need to know the rule. There are many rules and regulations actually. For example, we are not allowed to transmit music using our radios. We can only talk to each other, discuss about technical things, or during emergency, we can of course pass on emergency messages, search and rescue or relief messages for government or other third party people. So regarding this word ham, it is a very old word. It was, if you go to the English dictionary, it is in the dictionary. Many people think it is an abbreviation, so they write it in capital HAM, A and M. It is not exactly an abbreviation. Like any English word, this word came up way back in 1890. In 1890, there were people who were doing experiments in radio communication. Thank you, thank you. Radio communication and also telegraphic communication. They also got employed in some railway stations for telegraphic, because that time only telegraph was available for communication, not voice communication was available. Technology was not yet developed, and some of the people were actually not very proficient in English. There is a phrase called ham-fisted. If my hand is not perfect in certain work, suppose I am not capable of making it in a nice way, then I am called unskilled. Unskilled. I am not skilled. And in English, it is called ham-fisted. My fist is not skilled. Ham-fisted is a derogatory term, but actually hams are far more proficient than professional radio communicators. That they have learned on their own through practice and study and like that. So it is a word. Ham is a word. One means there are different meanings of ham, and you can see in small letter it is written HAM, very small letter. It's not capital. It's a noun. Also radio ham, an amateur radio operator. And these are the books you can write to me. I can photocopy and provide you the PDF file as well, link for the PDF files, so that you can download and self study for the exam. As I already explained, the existing governmental radio communication channels are suitable for departmental. For example, a police official can only talk to his police official only using his walkie-talkie, not to a ham. But if he is a ham, then he can use his ham radio set to communicate to me also. I am not a police, but if I am at a relief camp, I can communicate to that police official if he is also a ham, of course. Yeah, my email ID is already there in the slide. I'll share the slide with Raju Thapaji, so he can share with you. I'm telling you, it is Sandeep, SANDEEP, Sandeep @bigyanprasar.gov.in, or simply Sandeep Borua @gmail.com. Sandeep Borua @gmail.com. That is my email ID, where I can send you the links for the PDF files to download. So these things I already said why a ham is called a ham. Some people abbreviated is like Harge, Armstrong, and Marconi. There were three people called Hyman, Bob Elmy, Poggy Murray in USA. Then there was a magazine called Home Amateur Mechanic, long back in 1900. Then some people were abusing in the early frequencies were colliding with each other because there were no governmental rules. So the professional people used to abuse the radio amateurs as hams. So nobody knew actually, know exactly why they were called hams. And another, as I already knew, ham-fisted, meaning a poor in hand key operation using a Morse key, an inexperienced person like that. But we are not actually inexperienced. And one of the benefits of ham is that when I transmit, everybody tuning to a particular frequency is able to receive that message. So very fast. So anyone who is in a position to jump into action, he can help the person in distress. Can a ham operator communicate? I didn't get the question. Let me go for ending my slide. I think time is 12 now. Yeah, Tharmaji, yeah, Harjit, yes, thank you very much. So I would like to conclude with this, and thanks for listening to my demonstration and presentation. And so if you have any question or query.
So we can take questions at the end of the presentation. Our last speaker.
Okay, okay. There is another speaker now.
Yes, sir. One more speaker.
Thank you. So best wishes to
Uh,
you and all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for your brainstorming practical presentation. Sir enlightened us with the practical demonstration of various instruments which we can use during disaster. He pointed out ham radio has always been in the forefront whenever a disaster strikes, be it a flood, a cyclone, an earthquake, or whether kind of a natural or man-made situations. With the capability of modern equipment to operate from very low batteries, the reliance on mains power is not there, and so hams are ideally equipped to work out in
Yeah,
the
we can use
field
a
where
battery like
basic
this also.
amenities. Yes, sir, do not exist. India ham have always relied round in every possible emergency, and their efforts have always been lauded. Ham radio is internationally accepted as the main means of emergency communications and has provided it is invaluable in such situations. Sir, we have take away from your presentation that NIDM should start ham radio station. Now, moving on to our last presentations, we have Sri Rajiv Kumar Shukla, senior media person with more than 40 years of experience in media and journalism. During his tenure, he has worked with some of the most prestigious institutions such as Press Information Bureau, All India Radio, International Radio Broadcaster at Hindi Services of Voice of America at Washington, D.C., Jawaharlal Nehru Krishi Vishwavidyalaya, etc. He has served as a Directorate General, Additional Director General, Officer on Special Duty, any other respected position during his tenure in All India Radio. He has regularly delivered lectures to All India Radio and Doordarshan program professionals at Prasar Bharati, National Academies of Broadcasting and Multimedia at Delhi and Bhubaneswar, and Regional Academies of Broadcasting and Multimedia at Hyderabad, Ahmedabad, and Lucknow. He also taught students of journalism and mass communication as a guest faculty at IIMC, BHU, GGSIU, and many other academic institutions in various parts of the country. He has worked with UNICEF, UNESCO, and many other national and international organizations for causes such as disaster management, health, women and child welfare, etc., devoted to public service broadcasting. Now, I request Shri Rajiv Kumar Shukla ji to enlighten our participant. Sir, over to you.
I hope I'm properly audible.
Yes, sir,
Right.
you are audible.
Yeah. Good afternoon to all the participants and experts. At the beginning, I shall like to thank National Institute of Disaster Management, Dr. Surya Prakash, Dr. Thapa, Dr. Kaur, and all other luminaries of NIDM. Also, my institution where I have been serving, All India Radio, in particular, National Academy of Broadcasting and Multimedia, Dr. Umashankar Singh in particular. So, yes, I mean, today it has been fascinating listening to both Mr. Thait and Dr. Barua. Dr. Barua talked of a technology which has been there since, as he said, 1901, when Marconi started his experiments. And I mean, kind of succeed. He was getting to succeed in those two-way communications at that long-distance radio communication. And I mean, we all learned from him, and that ham radio has been a companion in the situations of disaster across the world, and it remains so for India also. Mr. Kathai took us to a very new, not, I mean, it's not yesterday's thing, but I mean, but still comparatively, it's a new and emerging medium, social media. Social media is a very powerful tool, but as he very correctly said, it can be misused also. It is misused also. So it's a two-edged sword. So now I go back to the traditional media, as it is known, which is broadcasting, traditional broadcasting, which is often dubbed as a one-way communication only. But now I shall just have to admit that it is no longer a simply one-way communication. There are so many ways and means of making it a two-way communication, and it is in fact done so. Anyway, so I shall first go to my presentation, and after that, I mean, maybe a few more points can be talked about. Well, next slide, please. Yeah. We all know, we are all, I mean, experts in this, that the frequency and ferocity of disasters, natural disasters of all kinds have been rising, and ecological change are all rise in disasters frequency. Disasters ravage lives, they destroy livelihoods, and ruin infrastructure and very adversely impact local, regional, national, and also global economy. Disasters cannot be prevented or stopped completely, but the damage caused by these can and must be reduced and alleviated. Next slide, please. Now I have moved on to the next slide. Well, as I was saying, we now omnipresent. Some people also think of it as omnipotent, but that is not true. But media does play a very crucial role in disaster management. Amongst various traditional and emerging media platforms, radio takes a pivotal position in communication due to its better and larger reach, easy affordability, and simple technology with continuous innovations. In fact, when a disaster is actually happening, radio is the medium of choice globally. Now, Dr. Barua has talked about it, why radio becomes, of course, he talked in terms of ham radio only. Many kinds of disaster situations like a cyclone or an earthquake, even floods, the first casualty is the electricity supply. And so the television and so many other modern modes, they are not useful and functional at that time. As has been mentioned in my introduction, I served for 2 years in Voice of America, and I remember that all the weather channels there, when they talked of approaching a hurricane, they call cyclones as hurricanes. They will talk about a disaster survival kit, and along with other things like non-perishable food and drink water and blanket and torch and all, invariably it mentioned a operated radio, because if many other things fall and become non-functional, radio is likely to be a link to very crucial and saving information. Media is very simple. It is to support the efforts to safeguard lives and livelihoods, creating public awareness and helping rescue, relief, and rehabilitation activities. This is the policy. I mean, because I have been assigned the talk of to talk on policy, so the policy can be summed up very succinctly thus: to support the efforts to safeguard lives and livelihoods, and helping in rescue, relief, and rehabilitation activities. The implementation of this policy needs a plan, a well-conceived and comprehensive communication plan, which should have disaster risk prevention and reduction component, disaster forewarning, that is early warning, disaster coverage, rescue and relief, and then post-disaster rule, which is rehabilitation. Disaster risk prevention aims at educating people at large, and particularly those residing in disaster-prone areas, to be prepared at all times for such an eventuality. Basically, it means educate people about the do's and don'ts, what kinds of disasters, I mean, for instance, in coast, cyclones are a threat. Many parts of India live under the threat of earthquake. Are a very regular occurrence in In fact, this is the flood season, and Assam and Bihar and of great diversity, and unfortunately we are having diversity of possible disasters also. So we have to be prepared for that. People have to help themselves, and for that they need to be prepared and know what it needs to, what it takes to face a situation. The education should take place continuously in various program formats and should target general as well as special audience programs such as farmers, fisher folk, industrial workers, women, children, youth. As I mean, it has been said, you should start young. So right from the childhood, an awareness should be created that disasters have to be faced. These are a part of life, and these are the ways to face it. And this education should be ingrained, and then it should, of course, be upgraded as the child grows. And then we have fisher, for instance, fishermen, the farmers, different kind of situations, different kind of professions, and different kind of disaster vulnerabilities. Now, this part is there, which should go on all the time. But the process acquires a sense of urgency and focused on specific information dissemination when the threats of a natural calamity loom large. This is the phase of disaster warning. Disaster warnings are also in two stages: early warnings and emergency warnings. When a disaster actually strikes, I mean, of course, that is quite self-evident to disaster professionals. I mean, for a cyclone, so you get the information that a low pressure area is developing, and so there is a chain of messages which are disseminated to prepare first, then to prepare for the eventuality as it comes near, and then finally when it strikes. When it strikes, then mostly it is in the form of breaking news. Immediate media follow-up activities are primarily aimed at lending assistance to rescue and relief operations, and also keeping affected people as well as people at large informed. This is a very closely knit world now. So everybody is interested in what is happening. So that is, but of course, the level of interest will vary. The people who are getting affected, or those who kith and kin are getting affected, they are of course much more interested. Others also are interested as aware and as citizens. There's less attention grabbing but vitally important role of media is disaster management relates to the rehabilitation process of the victims. This is the post-disaster role. I recall I faced the 1997 May earthquake at Jabalpur, and kind of coverage we did at that time, and that was appreciated also. But after we came over, and of course, I mean, it was over. But after that, the activities, the frenetic activities, they went on, and after some time, it petered out. But when 1 year was over, we did a series of programs again, highlighting what are the lessons which have been learned and implemented, what are the lessons which have not been so well learned. So I think this is a follow-up part which is also very important and very crucial. In disaster situations, it has the potential for being the most immediate, intimate, and accessible medium. And All India Radio has continually risen to the occasion when disasters of various kinds have struck. There are, in fact, I can go on relating success story or story after story of how, I mean, in every kind of Srinagar floods. I remember when our main transmitter had become non-functional because the flood waters had seeped in. Then the team went to Shankaracharya Hill, where the FM, our commercial transmitter was there, which was converted into regular service. And for about a fortnight, that was the only media activity happening from which information was being given. Of course, all kinds of disasters have been there. And I remember particularly the Kosi flood of 2008, when not only, but there was a software developed at the Directorate General, and people went there, and hundreds of people, their families who had been torn asunder. Now, besides AIR, private radio channels and community radio stations are also contributing in this field. But private radio channels can devote very small time chunks as their primary motive. I'm not being judgmental. It's a fact of life, and because that is their financial backbone. All India Radio can and does employ long as well as short formats in different languages and dialects. Community radio stations can provide the last mile connectivity. It must be said here that community radio movement should have grown much faster in a country of such mind-boggling diversity as India is. But it hasn't yet happened, but it should happen because the community radio stations can play a very, very crucial role. These are some of the photographs of the Kosi flood when radio was the only means of communication. With the emergence and growth of, of course, this is important that the local self-government institutions, all very important, the local opinion maker, because it has to be a grassroots activity as well. It can't all be top down. So coordination with everybody is very, very important. Media personnel engaged in disaster management work should not only possess the requisite professional skills, but also be endowed with empathy and exalted human values. You need courage, you need devotion to duty. And now All India has various sources of receiving information, IMD, NDMA now, and district administration. The merit of the system is that information is received after due vetting and verification. But mechanisms for real-time information sharing from agencies like NDMA, SDMAs, IMD, CWC, GSI, etc., and the respective nearest AR stations, particularly in the disaster vulnerable areas, would facilitate faster communication and action thereon. Basically, I mean that there should be a decentralized networking to the headquarters in Delhi, because we need to have decentralized local connections between various agencies, which can be put to use in a short span. AIR has its own, this is now very important because I am supposed to be speaking with a special reference to All India Radio. So AIR internal standard operating procedure in place, which enables all AIR stations to swing into immediate action on their own in case of a disaster happening in their area. This is updated as per the exigencies of the situation. So this is something which we have done, in fact, many decades back, that we have an SOP in place. Stations know what they are supposed to do. So they don't need any bureaucratic clearances and all. They can swing into action on their own, of course, in conjunction with and in coordination with the local disaster management authorities. Air stations, particularly those located in the disaster-prone areas, also carry out campaigns regularly for education of population, that I have already mentioned. Then, to further improve AIR's disaster management communication, preparedness and performance, upgradation and fine-tuning of AIR's internal apparatus in technological as well as program spheres is a continuous process. AIR's already robust linkages with all concerned agencies such as NDMA, IMD and others are being further. This should extend to all radio operators. In fact, now because now it's a multiplicity. The radio universe is now not only All India Radio. The privately owned radio stations and the community radio stations are also there. So there has to be an umbrella policy and coordination. AR participates in many international activities also, such as training courses, workshops, seminars geared to this end. AR has partnered with organizations like Asia Pacific Broadcasting Union, that is ABU, Asia Pacific Institute for Broadcasting Development, UNICEF, USAID, BBC, etc. We are having workshops, we are having seminars. I have also kept some slides, 3 or 4 slides on the COVID-19 situation also, because that is the most important thing happening at the moment. The ongoing COVID-19 pandemic caused by coronavirus, that is novel coronavirus, SARS-CoV-2, is the biggest public health challenge the world has faced in about a century. The entire humanity has been threatened and to a large extent ravaged by this zoonotic disease. Now, this zoonotic disease term is something which is new comparatively for public consciousness, not in medical terms. And so it is having accurate, factual, and objective information and disseminating it quickly is crucial. Media persons also need to transform the highly technical. In fact, this is true of all disaster communication. That technical information with its attendant jargon has to be made into broadcast-friendly messages. People and intelligent terms and employing regional languages and also dialects. And this is in fact where radio becomes most important. Communicating to people, talking to people, speaking to people, listening to them also in their own languages, and not just languages but dialects. And in a country like India where 22 languages are there, in our 8th schedule, English happens to be 23rd, and we have hundreds of dialects. So radio becomes invaluable because we have the capacity and the practice to speak to people in their own languages and dialects. The entire global media, including the broadcasting fraternity, is working round the clock to support the brave and stupendous efforts of the doctors, the paramedical staff, and other in containing, mitigating, overcoming this pandemic. The same is the case in India. Broadcasting professionals from All India Radio and Doordarshan, the public service broadcasters, private television radio channels, and community radio stations are all active in this concerted effort. Media principles are accuracy, objective, scientific temperament, adoption of reach, and correct understanding by the audience, courage, selfless devotion to duty, while taking necessary care to ensure one's own safety so that one can continue to be active and useful. Avoiding dogma, sensationalism, and rumor mongering remains critical. I am reminded of Mr. Kathait's presentation where he talked of what kinds of rumors, what kinds of misinformation was being circulated from social media, and this is the job of us in the media to counter these things. Now there is another interesting situation that government, societies, institutions, and health professionals are racing against clock to find effective and safe solutions, vaccines, and treatments. Thus, there is an overwhelming explosion of information, which is not always scientifically true and sometimes contradictory and misleading. This has been talked about. Hence, application of critical appraisal skills becomes necessary so that half-baked or incorrect information is not disseminated, and authentic sources such as Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, WHO, UNICEF, ICMR, etc. should be used to collect and disseminate is fighting stigma and discrimination. This is something about which I believe that UN Secretary General also has spoken, WHO has spoken. There is unfortunately an element of stigma being attached to those affected and also those who are the corona warriors, as we call them. And that is something which springs basically from ignorance. All stigma springs from ignorance, but it can have devastating effects on those stigmatized. And it can also lead to suppression of information. Suppose I have a problem, I have some symptoms, but because of the fear of stigma being attached to it, I suppress this information. That would mean that I am likely to harm myself, my own family, and the community at large. So the fighting of stigma is crucial, and media has to play a very important role in this. Be a purveyor of hope and not gloom. The human spirit will prevail. So I think this is all in the presentation. Now I think Dr. Thapa and Dr. Kaur can move on to the next part. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for your presentation. No newspaper can go, community radio can go. When emergencies like COVID-19, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. When emergency like COVID-19 and disasters strike, radio has a strong and specific role to play in keeping communities up to date with events and advising them on practical steps to take to reduce the impact of disasters, such as setting food aside for an emergency period. Thank you very much, sir, for enlightening our participants. Now we will take some question raised by our participants. Due to time constraint, we will restrict ourselves to 2 to 3 questions. So you can see from a question, there is so many questions on Hum Radio. So my first question is for Sandeep Barua ji. Sir, are you there? Hello, Mr. Sandeep Barua ji. Okay, then we can move on to Rajiv sir. Hello sir. Uh, Based on your personal experience, what do you suggest to journalists and reporters regarding precaution while visiting COVID affected areas?
I would feel that the instructions are there. These need to be known and internalized. In fact, in the beginning, also some do's and don'ts were circulated. When you are writing, then of course you need to go and collect information. For that, you need to have the basically, of course, I mean, we all know that you need to protect yourself by wearing a mask, by physical distancing, and I mean, that is for observation and for learning things when you are a print journalist. But when it comes to being an electronic media journalist, then basically you have to talk to people. So when you talk to people, I mean, then there is an element of risk involved because as has been said, I mean, I'm not a medical expert, but it has been said that one way of the spread of novel coronavirus is when people speak, they sneeze, they cough, and they speak loudly. Then it becomes, I mean, so there are these aerosols which are airborne and all that. I mean, so the masks do take care, but then there are these sticks available these days. So you need to have those sticks in ready so that the microphone, because the camera can pan. You know, if you are a television journalist, then it's comparatively easy to the visual part is no problem because the camera can take a close up from a distance also. But the sound part, for the sound part also, now there is this stick available. So that needs to be very carefully used. What happens that wearing a mask for long durations has its own, I mean, you feel tired, you feel suffocated sometimes, and in fact, I remember that I once went to AIMS, and for there I was there for 3 to 4 hours, and in the final hour, I remember that for about maybe 1 minute, involuntarily, without even thinking about it, I put my mask down, and then it came back to me that I'm so basically these are things which have to be hammered and internalized. Uh, of course, taking sanitizer with you is also very important because, as has been said, washing hands for 20 seconds with soap and water is the best thing. But that cannot happen when you are on the move all the time. You might not have. So keeping is, I mean, taking your own bottle with you and using it as frequently as you can after touching surfaces and all, that is important. So, in fact, Harjeet ji, it is true of any disaster situation that you need to take the precautions because you are the media's role. What is particularly as a purveyor of information, and it has to be useful, objective, accurate, and positive information. Basically, I mean, you can, as I said, you can't be a purveyor of gloom. Everything is going to be bad. You can't, I mean, because human spirit has to be, it will triumph, and that has to be brought out. But for that, I mean, there is no scope for being foolhardy. So you need to take that precaution to cover, to using the mask, Now these days the face shields are also there. So the technology is there. Using it, for instance, there is a mask. In fact, now this is a campaign going on with the help of UNICEF, the Mask Man. What they are doing is that all of us are using the mask. Are we doing it correctly? You go to the market now. You can see the way the consciousness was there in Delhi, I shall say, in the beginning. Now you go to the market, all those circles, they are now almost abandoned. No, the shopkeeper also doesn't tell you, yeah, you maintain that distance. You know, I mean, so the care and which everybody used to take, it is slackening, and in fact there is no scope for slackening, because as has happened in many areas, many countries of the world, that there could be second waves also. So this until this effective vaccine is approved and then mass produced, and a treatment which is very effective and safe is there, we have the prevention and taking care of our own safety is very important. So because the media persons, in fact it has happened, some media persons have died in the line of duty in India. In Prasar Bharati also, there is a case of a cameraman getting affected. So in fact, the threat is real. That doesn't stop us from doing our job, but we should always remember that as a human being, as a family person, and then as a media person, as a citizen, we must take care of ourselves and do our duty.
Sir, I think it will satisfy question query. Now, sir, one more question is raised by our participant from it's Nivedita ji. Sir, she asked you that have you tried reaching out to newspapers and television's editors for giving more space to disaster management when there is no disaster?
Nivedita ji, this is in fact something which I totally agree with you as a citizen. But unfortunately, in the scheme of things we have, Prasar Bharati or All India Radio or Doordarshan do not have any right to dictate or even tell the newspapers and others to what they should do. This is in fact more of the function of Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, and I believe that they do get in touch with all the media outlets. In fact, it has been discussed many a times, Dr. Kaur, there has to be a culture of disaster consciousness and disaster preparedness. And in fact, that has to be linked to the climate issues, the environmental issues. I mean, I'm talking now not just of COVID, but the entire disaster spectrum, I would say. I remember, I have mentioned it earlier also, and I shall mention it again. There was this conversation between the celebrated author Amitabh Ghosh and Dr. Sunita Narayan of Center for Science and Environment. And there, Mr. Ghosh made a very interesting point. He said that in a democracy, if the political parties feel that the citizenry, the voters care very deeply about the environmental issues, then they also become conscious that they should have a very clear-cut, scientific and forward-looking environmental policy, and that should impact their electoral prospects. Many democrats have these tendencies. We need to get there. So basically, I would say that the people at large need to get more aware, need to get more demanding, need to do their duty and then be more demanding, I would say, so that there is this all pervading culture. And if the culture is there, then of course the newspaper, I'm not saying that newspapers or print magazine, print journalism is not doing it. Yeah, they are doing it. Then there is this category of science communicators. We all know that in the media space today, particularly on television channels and on social media, there's so much of dogma, you know, the the bhoot, the pret, the chudail, the ichhadhari nagin, all that kind of crap. So basically, as a society, we need to nurture the constitutional goal of having a scientific temper. So media has to play a very crucial role in that. And I believe that the government efforts are there in this regard, but only government efforts are not going to be sufficient. It's the citizenry at large, people at large, and of course to sensitize them, to make them aware is the job of media also, and we must play that role.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Uh, I think now Sandeep sir is with us. Sir, are you
Yes.
there? Okay, okay. Sir, one question raised by Sri Hari Prasad ji. What is your suggestion about community ham radio network in every community?
Okay. He is talking about the community network, ham radio community network. Yeah, that is possible.
Yes.
That is possible because if a number of applicant for this amateur radio license, if they appear for the exam at the same time in a particular locality, say 15-20 people, they have to apply together to the local monitoring station and appear for the exam together, and when they pass they can form their own community network within their own area. I hope they're able to understand my answer.
Yes, sir. I think it will satisfy our participants. Now, sir, one more question. What is the major difference between walkie-talkie and ham radio?
Okay. There is no difference. Actually, walkie-talkies are made for all the people. For example, a walkie-talkie, maybe you can see the walkie-talkie used by the industrial people or the security people or the police people, but only the frequencies allotted are different. So Ministry of Communications, they allocate different frequency spectrum of the particular VHF spectrum. We are allotted different frequencies. For example, FM broadcast stations, 88 to 108 is FM broadcast station, then 118 to 136 megahertz, that is your pilot aeroplane communication, air traffic communication. Then your 144 to 146 is for ham radio operators. Then 434 to 438 is ham radio operators. So same radio can be used by different people, but the frequencies are different. There is no difference between the radio technologies. Only the frequencies are different.
Thank you very much, sir. With this, we have come to end of today's session. I, on behalf of National Institute of Disaster Management, extend a very hearty vote of thanks to the honorable distinguished speakers, Shri Anil Kathat, Shri to extend a special thanks to ED NIDM Major General Manoj Kumar Bindal and Professor Surya Prakash, Head GMR Division NIDM, for providing innovative and encouraging environment, moral guidance, continuous enthusiasm, and valuable suggestion throughout NIDM endeavors. I would also like to thank Sri S.B. Mukesh, ADG NABM, for his support in organizing this training program. I'm also thankful to Uma Shankar ji for his support and coordination. I heartily congratulate all the participants for their active participation in this event, as no program can become successful with a single person. So I extend my big thanks to our GMRD team, Mr. Raju Thapa, coordinator of the program, and Mr. Anil Kathat, and also our IT team for making this program a successful event with their contribution. I request all the participants to join the training program using the same link and meeting ID only. So I declare end of the training program for today. So thank you very much. Jai Hind. Mr. Raju Thapa, you want to announce anything? Or we can close the meeting?